Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Kiddushin daf Nun Dal, and we're going to begin on Nun Gimel Mudbeis, the last two words. Omer Rav. So Rav said, as we continue to Nun Dal Mud Aleph, Chazarnu al kol sdadim shel Rab Meir, that as Rashi says, Kolemer Afopi Sheshninu Rab Meir, even though I learned the opinion of Rab Meir that B'shoigeg lo Kiddush, if a person was engaged in giving something b'shogeg, in that situation it is not a good Kiddushin. La mishum desvirle hektish b'shogeg in mischalel. It's not because when it comes to using something which is hektish b'shogeg that it's not mischalel, that it becomes profane, and therefore it would be like no din ila on it. And therefore, that would maybe explain why it's not a good Kiddushin. Because if it's mischalel, then you should be able to give this over to this woman, and it should work. However, ella bein b'shogeg bein b'meiz mischalel. Skipping a couple words, lines in Rashi. Even Rameir will hold that if it's b'shogeg or b'meizid, but again, even b'shogeg it's mischalel, which leads to the question: why then? If in fact Rameir would hold there's a din me'ila on most hektish, so and it would go out to chulin, so then why would Itaka say that b'shogeg it's not a good Kiddushin? So again, chazarnu al kol stadim shel Rameir, v'lo metzinu hektish b'shogeg mischal. We never find anywhere that when a person uses hektish b'shogeg that it does not transfer this Kiddushin doesn't turn into chulin. That b'meizid mischalel. However, when it comes to using b'meizid, it is mischal. We don't find a distinction. Mishnah seinu, however, our Mishnah, which does imply that's what our Mishnah says. It says Rashi the time b'shogeg will kiddush almol nischal. Why would Rameir say that if you're being mekadosh a woman b'shogeg with hektish that it doesn't work? Why not? If he holds it's mischal, then it should work. It's dafka in a situation. Our Mishnah. B'kasanois, kahuna shlobolu. We're referring to the clothes of kohanim that have not yet worn out. So, let's just see 4 more words. Hoyel v'nitnu lihanois behen, because they're meant to be used to derive benefit from. When you wear clothes, you're getting hana from those clothes. So let's look at Rashi before we see the next line in the Mishnah, in the Gemara rather. Ruin la'avodah. And when it comes to kahuna, the clothes of kahuna, which is not worn out, which means that since it's not worn out, it can be worn. And it can be worn specifically for the avoda. Skipping a couple lines in Rashi, rak shel neschavin l'chalon shel nitnato malchei. Okay, actually, let's see the Gemara's line. Lefi shel nitnato malchei. That the din is that our Mishnah is only referring to the garments of the kohanim that b'shogeg, if you used it, it's not gonna. There'll be no din me'ila, because the whole notion of these garments, since it's shaykh, that this person who's doing the avoda will end up also getting hana from them, even if he doesn't mean to, but he's inadvertently going to be getting hana from them, shelo b'shas avoda. Because at the second before he does the avoda, he can't just immediately just fall into it and then do the avoda. So there's time in which he's not wearing it. Says Rashi, Shiu hakohanim zrizin kamalachim. They're not so quick like angels. Lavshitan bigmar avoda. They take it off the second the avoda's over. Vo yashum aleihim achavoda keher hoyin. That they don't even have a split second, the blink of an eye, to be able to take them off. So therefore, this is a very interesting pshat. Our Mishnah is a special case. Really, normally, bein b'shogeg, bein b'meizid, the din is that if you would use hektish, it is mischalel. It does turn into chulin, which means you should be able to mekadosh an issue with it. So then why? Because you're over me'ila, which means that you, right? But however, if we're dealing with clothes, dafka, shlobolu, and then that's the exception. Let's go straight to question 8. My time to Rameir, the hektish, the hamakadosh behektish b'shogeg in mekadeshes. Why not? So Rabbi Yochanan Mishab Deloi Nischal Hektish Al Yadaihu, because he holds that it doesn't become hektish. That it is hektish. You cannot make it chulin. However, according to Rav, he says no. It's davka these clothes of the kohen which were not worn out, and l'chatchila nitnu lihanois behen b'shagig. It was given that it could be used b'shagig, so there cannot be a din me'ila on it. And therefore, that's what he was mekadosh. What a level you would mekadosh a woman. So he was mekadosh a woman with these garments, right? Shlo bolu. So hektish b'shagig and mischal. So in this situation, it is mischal taka, and there don't forget it's not mischalel, and therefore because it's not mischalel, it's not a Kiddushin. Why? Because these clothes of the kahuna, there was like a decree, almost a tekanas based in a gezerah, that these clothes can be worn even though b'shogeg you're going to be getting hana from them shul b'shas avaida. So it's not an issue because of that. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. So again, there's two possible answers to this. So it's again either Rabbi Yochanan or according to the sheet of Rav that no, we don't find this. We don't find that hektish does not become mischalel b'shogeg. We find that it does. But over here is the one exception. Tashma. It's a shtickle daichik that's what the Mishnah is talking about. But that's what we're talking about. Tashma. Kasainis kahuna shibolu. If you have garments that were worn out, which means they're no longer fit for the kahuna, mu'alon behendi b'rameir. Rameir says there's din me'ila. Ma'alav afilu lo bolu. Maybe it says. So why would you think this? But not, so maybe it's even if it's not bolu. And therefore, that's a kasha, which means even if it's a royal avoda, we see such garments, taka, there's a din me'il, lo bolu davka, only if it's worn out. But if it's not worn out, then again, if you shall nid the total malchus sharis, it's not mischal. Okay. Tashma. Moalim b'chadatin ve'en moalim ba'atikin. So when it comes to Gemara Shkolim, which we had a couple years ago, I should say it this way, unless you're doing 2 cycles, then you only had it last month. Mo'alon b'chadatin. So let's look at this Rashi. So in Shkolim, there's a parish called Tikkun Chadatin, which is referring to the new Shkolim. Shayfarois shohay b'mikdash. There were shayfaros in the mikdash, which was like tzedakah boxes, 13 of them to be exact. Uvehem noisdim shikom be'echad kosav alav tikkun chadatin. On one of them it says new shkom. Mishlo shakel ba'adar. Someone didn't give the shekel. Shemiyim v'batayich shenasel noisel l'saychay. So it's put in this box. V'agizbarim noisen noisel b'lishka. And they go to the lishka. K'shagye echad mepirke hatruma shmeshosh prakim terminaisa. There's 3 times that they would actually take this money out. V'sheni, there was a second shofar, a second tzedakah box that was cost of tikkun atikin. It was like the old shkolim. Umishul shakel eshtakin. If let's say for whatever reason last year you didn't end up giving your shkolim, which you were supposed to, so you don't put them in the new shekel box, but rather you put the one in the shekel box, what's called tikkun atikin. Mavil shana haba v'naisel l'teich shofar zeh. There's barin mafanin naisel mois l'shari lishcha. So this is used over for the leftovers for the lishka. Okay, mishana shavra. So now let's go back. It says that if you use these new coins, the chadatin, tikkun chadatin, which again were supposed to be used for the purchase of karbonos sibor, so the din is there's a din me'il on that. It says Rashi shahari or karbonos sibor heinoim din. However, in mu'alon ba'atikin. But not the old coins, says Rashi. Shetar shari lishcha alehem, v'nitnu l'chayim se'ir v'migdol seha. So the tikkun atikin were actually not used necessarily for the karbonos sibor. There was really designated these older coins that they can be used for other upkeep items, such as the walls of the city and its towers. V'chol tzarech tikkun ha'ir. V'ksav Rabbi Yehuda ein me'ila b'shari lishcha. He holds there's no din me'ila on these inyanim of shari lishka. Fine. So that is the din. All right. So that's according to who do we say? Rabbi Yehuda. And so Dibri Rabbi Yehuda, you have the parentheses, but it sounds like Rabbi Yehuda. Okay. Rameir Oimer Mo'alin Af Batikin. Rameir says no, there's actually a din me'ila even on the atikin. Well, the question is, why? If they're not being used for karbonos sibor, Shahai Rameir Oimer Mo'alin B'shirei Hilishka. Because this is what the Gemara in Shkolm says, that it is possible, as we're going to see, a circumstance that you should be over me'ila. Why? These coins are being used for just building up walls. Why don't we say that when it comes to these things, that it's something which is beyond our control? When it comes to getting hana from walls, the shade of the walls, you're walking by and the shade just happens to cast on your body on a hot summer day, so he said, so since it comes to Shar Halishka, these Tikkun Atikin, so why would there be a din me'ila? It should be just like the clothes of the Kohen, Shlobolu, that we say, well, nit nato malchi shara. So too, a person's walking by these walls. How could Rameir say that you're going to be, there'll be a din me'ila on it? Says Rashi, because it will leisha b'tzila. You may end up sitting in the shade. So it still maintains its kedusha. So Gemara answers, Lo teim Rameir, lo im Rabbi Yehuda. So don't say it was Rameir, but rather say it's because of, it's actually Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says it. And therefore, that explains why in parentheses it says Div Rabbi Yehuda. No, it was really Rabbi Yehuda, says Rashi. That which it says, B'shagis Kiddush, the Ksav Alpi Shenina Kasainis Kahun Lihanais, the clothes are used for Hana, La'achar Avoida, after the Avoda, Le'inyan Shar Hanais, B'Kedush Kaimi, it still maintains its Kedusha, Hu Moyel Zeh B'Kedushin V'Yatzol Chulun. This person can be Moyel when it comes to Kedushin, and it does go to Chulun. So therefore we said, okay, fine, we'll just say this sheet is Rabbi Yehuda. Talks about Asanya, Rabbi Shmuel, Bar Rabbi Yitzchak, Av Yerushalayim Shinashu, comes to the stones of Yerushalayim that are left over. Mo'alim Hem Rameir. It says Rameir. Lo Tem Rameir, Elohim Rabbi Yehuda. We'll switch the name. So Rabbi Yehuda, Yerushalayim Mikadsha. Is it true that Yerushalayim is Kaidish? Didn't Vatnan, but we learned in Masechtas Nedarim. Ki'imra, if you use the language, Harialai Kikar Zeh, this bread is Ki'imra, like a sheep, which as Rashi says, Kaseh Tamid, like the sheep of a carbon Tamid, Kedirim, Ke'etzim, Ke'ishim, Kehechel, Kemizbech, Yerushalayim. So you used all these different languages. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Kol Aimer Yerushalayim, Lo Aimer Klum. If you use the language of Yerushalayim, you didn't say anything. It doesn't mean anything. Now, why not? Why is it not considered to be a neder? Because he didn't say Harilai Kikar Zeh Ki. He didn't add the chaf. It's like Yerushalayim. Even if you say Yerushalayim, until it has to be something like a carbon. So we clearly see that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like this. So how do we understand this statement? If we're saying it's like, again, Rameir, we have this issue. So as we continue to Nun Dalet and Beis, it's okay, Trey Tanoi, Nin who believed Rabbi Yehuda. Says Rashi, Ikomad Yomer, some say Yerushalayim Mikadsha Kehektish. If you use the language of Yerushalayim, it is considered like Hektish. She'im Yitom Avnei Achayim, if you would use the stones, live nice bebeso to build your own house, then moil. Ikomad Yemelo Mikadsha. So it's a machlokus among Tanoim, a libid Rabbi Yehuda. De bar pada. Rameir said that hektish b'meizid meschala. That when it comes to this, is like our Mishnah. When it comes to hektish, if you used it on purpose, then it's meschala. B'shageg ain't meschala, but not b'shageg, which is not what we were saying before. We said that b'shageg it should be meschala. V'lo amr b'shageg meschalel. The only time we say the shageg is meschalel is elva inyan carbon bilvad. Only when we're dealing with a carbon. So for the Gemara, if it's not meschalo, carbon mechayev. So then why do you have to bring a carbon? You obviously shouldn't be a din me'ila. There shouldn't be an asher me'ilois because you didn't do anything because it's not meschal. So how do you understand this whole thing? If you want to tell me that it's mischalel, then you bring a carbon. You tell me it's not mischalel, so why do you bring a carbon? Oh, kiyasa rabin parish mishmei demar pada. He explains, that again, b'shegeg is not mischalel. V'lo amru b'shegeg mischalel, and the only time we say it's mischalel, ela inyan achila bilvad, only when it comes to eating. What does that mean? So it says Rashi, ha'oichel kikar shel hakdish. The person would mamish eat this bread. The ozulei hakdish, v'hu adin l'hadlakas ner. It could also be lighting a candle, or the oil of hektish, the whole hana, or any other form of hana. Hektish, if a person who just, let's say, spends money of hektish, in behem me'ila, do nafkim rishus hektish. It doesn't leave the rishus hektish. So, in order for it to leave hektish, it has to be basically destroyed or something along those lines. Like eating it or burning it. However, if it was just stam, you did some transaction, that doesn't do anything. The halacha is like Rab Meir, according to Meiser, regarding Meiser Sheni. Rashi helps us out a little bit. The Mammon Gavohu. There's a machlokes whether that Meiser Sheni is Mammon Hedjit, and therefore you can be Mekadosh Nisha with it, or Rab Meir says it's like Meiser, it's Mammon Gavoa, so you can't. Hayol was Stamlon Tana Kavase, because we have a Stam Tana like him. But halacha Rabbi Yehuda, here's a little review from the Mishnah Nun Beis Mud Beis, or we should maybe look at it. Halacha Rabbi Yehuda behektish. When it comes to hektish, hayav a stamon tana kavase, because there's a stam tana like him. So now we're going to go through this. Krameir b'maiser mai. How do we see a stam mishnah that holds that when it comes to maiser sheni, it's like the sheet of Rameir that holds that it's mammon, that's considered to be mammon gavoa. Hashem's money, so to speak, and kika zachu b'shulchan gavoya kazachu. Where do we see this? Mahi did not Kerem Ravai. So regarding Kerem Ravai, and on the side you have Mesechtes Ediyos. Okay, so we see regarding Kerem Ravai, in the vineyard, the first 3 years it's considered to be arla, and you can't get any hana from it. However, in the 4th year, it's brought to Yerushalayim, Kedushas Kerem Ravai. Okay, so Beishami Omrim Ein Lo Chaimish, the Ein Lo Biur. There's no Chaimish. What does that mean? Hamachalo Peraisav La'alos Adom Yerushalayim. So just like Meiser Sheni, when it comes to Neta Ravai, or this is Kerem Ravai, if the fruit is too heavy, so you could redeem it onto money. So he says Ein Sarach L'Haisav Chaimish Yafil Balov. When it comes to Kerem Ravai, unlike Meiser, you do not have to be Moisav Chaimish. You don't have to add anything to it. And Ein Lo Bir, says Rashi, B'shana Shlishis V'shishis Shel Shmita. During the 3rd and 6th years, in which you do not bring Meiser Sheni, instead you bring the Meiser Ani, Sheha Meisros Mizbarim Min Abayis, the Meisers are removed from the house, She'asel Hashaisan Yaiser, you can't keep them any longer, K'dechsev Kisichel Aser V'chulu. So there is no din bi'ur when it comes to Kerem Ravai. Beis Hillel says no, it's not true, which we're going to see later on. We'll learn later on why Beis Hillel says that. But Beis Hillel says no, when it comes to Kerem Ravai, the din is that you do have the ability to, you do have a din chaimish, there's a din beer. So he says there's a din of peret and oilus. Says Rashi, why? The karmacha krinin be, because it's considered like your vineyard. The poor people eat it in Yerushalayim. So when it comes to these different things, it's considered like yours, and therefore there's a din parent no oilus. It all goes lagas, as Rashi, Diksavri kul mammon gavohu, kameiser sheni. That Kerem Ravai has the same status as Meiser Sheni, and therefore it all goes to the press. So my time to Beis Hillel. So why does Beis Hillel say this when it comes to Kerem Ravai, that he compares it in a way to Meiser Sheni? So Gamri Kodesh Ma Meiser. Ma Meiser Yeshul Chaimish Yeshul Biur. Av Kerem Ravai Yeshul Chaimish Yeshul Biur. So we see the Beis Hillel holds that the din of Kerem Ravai is the same as the din of Meiser Sheni. And when it comes to Meiser Sheni, the din is that if a person would redeem his Meiser Sheni, so there is a din chaimish, you do have to add a 5th, and also there's a din biur, and therefore, just like there, by Meiser Sheni, these dinim apply. So too when it comes to Kerem Ravai. Yeshil Gami Kaddish Kaddish. But Meiser, he doesn't make this Gezer Shava. So even though maybe Beis Shammai agrees to Meiser Sheni, but not by Kerem Ravai. Yeshil Imrim Kameiser. And he says it's Kimeiser. It's like Meiser. So Kaman Svirul, who does he hold like? Ikra Bihuda Maikul Agas. If he holds it's like Rabbi Huda that it's yours, then why does it have to be put in the silo? Remember, Meiser Maman Hedyehu. After all, it's Maman Hedyet. Elav Karam Meir. It must be that Beis Hillel is in accordance to the Shita of Rab Meir, and therefore it's Keel like a Stam Mishnah, because Beis Shammai, Makam Beis Hillel, and Mishnah. So the fact that you have Beis Shammai there, it's like he's not even there, it's like a Stam Mishnah. And therefore, we find that Rab Meir, who holds that Meiser Sheni is considered to be Mamoin Kavoa, so too we see this by the Shita Beis Hillel. Question 9. Lamai nafkamina hadigamri Beis Shammai Beis Hillel Kaddish Meiser Kerem Ravai Pachlis Kasu Pachlis Beis Metach Gimel. So there's a din Chaimish, there's a din Beer, and Mamoin Gavoa is Pater Meperet Ve'oilolois. That sounds like 4 answers, but okay. Fine. Okay, let's continue. Before we continue, let's look at question TA 21. Beis Hillel oimrim Kerem Ravai ein lo peret ve'oilus elo kul lagas delokrin be karmacha. We don't read karmacha. It's not yours, rather it's Hashem's. It's considered like Mammon Gavoa. So ma tam doli chashiv karmacha. Oh, so maybe I already answered it. Yalfi kaddish ma'meiser sili meiser Mammon Gavoya. So that's the reason TA 21 that Kerem Ravai has the same din according to Beis Hillel. Let's find it. Right, it has the same din as Meiser Sheni, and just like Meiser Sheni, it's Mammon Gavoa. So too when it comes to Kerem Ravai. Okay, so that's TA 21. Before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's look at TB 22. Ksainis kahuna shlobolu. We have the garments of a kindness not worn out. My time the manderma in moalan behen. Why not moil? My time the manderma de moalan behen. So why is there a din meila? So manderma in moalan behem savar sholakach niskadshu molchatchil hanas behem baraya shahoy ksainis nehenin achra avodim in ksainis vein zerizin kamalacham ashtitin keherif ayin, which is like Rashi. So, because it's Torah's given to Malchasharis. Umandi Omer Moalan Behem Savar Shap Dapol Vishnasel Lahanos Kohanim Lachar Avoida Yikamakam Lashar Hanois Bekadushas and Kaimi. So it doesn't mean that it's like fine, the Kohanim can use it. That doesn't mean you have a right to be able to use it for anything else. That was TB 22. Okay, so now let's continue. So that was a Stam Mishnah, again, that proved, like the Shita of Rameir, that Meiser Sheni is Mammon Gavoa. Rabbi Yehuda behektish. However, we hold like Rabbi Yehuda and hektish. Mahi, why do we see this? Did not. Shilach biyad pikeach. Let's say you sent something in the hands of someone who is sane. So the din is, and then afterwards, v'niskar, then you remember that which you gave him, ad shel higi etzel chenvini, before he brought it to the store, so chenvini moil. In that situation, the chenvini is moil because you remembered it from before, likashiyaitzi, from the time that it goes out of his hands, basically. So the chenvini is the one who's moil. So fine. So how do we see this? So look at Rashi. Reisha hachitanan shilch be'al chereshavat katan. You sent it to someone who is not a bardas. Also shlichusan. If they do the shlichus gizber moil. Also shlichusan loy moil. Shilch be'al pikeach. It was sent in the hands of a pikeach. When Nizgrad shlo higia etzel chenvini. The guy remembered before he brought it to the chenvini. V'akmin and Hassam were establishing shechusku shneim gizber v'shliach. So in that situation, chenvini moil kishiyates, it says Rashi, deshkaga gabe isa. And over here is b'shaygig. Avahani mazidin inhu loy mechavi me'ilu. Al mashaygig mischal mezel lo mischal. We see that b'shaygig, this is the case of shaygig. It's mischal, but mezid it's not mischal. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda b'maisim ilo tanan. But don't we also have support like Rabbi Yehuda regarding meiser sheni that it's actually mammon hedget? But none, we learned it says like this: a paida meiser sheni shaloi. Now, a person wishes to redeem his meiser sheni, so you have to be moisel of chamishasai. You have to add an extra fifth. Ben mishloi ben shenitin lo b'matana. Whether it's given to you or rather as a gift, or it's actually yours. So mani ilim Rav Meir if it's Rav Meir mi matzi yoiv le b'matana. Are you able to give meiser sheni as a gift? Remember meiser mamon gavohu. It's considered to be Hashem. So if it's Hashem's, how can you give a gift to something which is not yours? El Lav Rabbi Yehuda. It must be, this is the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. And yet we find, therefore, a support to Rabbi Yehuda. That we find that we have a stamish like Rabbi Yehuda. That it was given at the status of while it was still tevel. That if you give a gift that has not been separated, it's not like it's been separated. Since it hasn't been separated, but it's in there, so there's a din of matana shel hormer kami shel hormer damian. This is no, we hold matana shel hormer as shelo kami shel hormer damian, and therefore he has the right to give the whole thing, even though incorporated inside of it is also the meiser sheni. Tashma hapoyedin net the Rabbi, one who redeems the net the Rabbi. Shalom moitzel of chamishasai. Again, you add a fifth. Ben shalom shinit matana money. Rav Meir, you can't give it as a gift. It's mammon gavoa. The hag garmi kaddish meiser. That was you said. Just like meiser shein is mammon gavoa, so too the same thing when it comes to net the Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda. So we see a stam mission like Rabbi Yehuda. No, Rav Meir. Here what you're talking about can go in diol kishu samadar. You gave it while it was still in the status of unripened fruit, says Rashi. Kishanavim nikarim. When the grapes are recognizable, lachash naval aparach after they fell, the Kamash one says Rashi the cholzman shu samadar. As long as it's in an unripe state, yochel atita mamatani, you can still give it as a gift. Shein shem ravayalav. So since it's not complete or ripe at that stage, so you can give it because it's not considered to be under the category of ravai, because it's not ripened yet. However, says the Gemara, Duluk Rabbi Yosi, the Amr Smadr Asum Imneshu Pri. He actually holds that even the state of smother is considered to be like a fruit, and therefore according to him he wouldn't be able to do this. But again, according to the Shita, he says that at that state you could. Tashma, Mashach Himenu Meiser Basela. A person did Mashicha, a person to a friend, he did Mashicha on an object for Meiser for a coin. Though hispik liftaisai, he didn't redeem it yet. And she'amad b'shnayim, and all of a sudden it doubled. This meiser became doubled. So nice and sella. The din is he only has to pay what was originally stipulated, and therefore he only has to give the sella. Umistaker b'sella, and he gains a sella. Meiser sheni shul, and keeps the meiser sheni. So Mani. Ilim Rameir, Amai Mistaker Basel, how does he get profit? But also that's a case of a Kamoim Rachmana that is totally at the time of the money. El Lav Rabbi Yehuda. So it must be like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda, you're right. V'hacha chad stam, v'hacha trei stami. Okay, fine. You have one stam mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda, but you have two stam mishnahs like Rameir. So stam madavka malichada stam mali trei stami. If a stam mishnah is arrived, the halacha is like you. So what's the difference? You have one stam mishnah or two? What's the difference? Is one against two. A stam mishnah should support you. So Rav Nachman Yitzchak halacha Rabbi Meir. The reason why the halacha is like Rabbi Meir is because not just that it was a stam mishnah, but hoyel tanan b'vchirta kavase, because it was chosen, as I showed you on the sign, Mesur Sashas, in the chosen masechta. The chosen masechta is Masechtas Edius, and Rashi says, "Shekol divrein heidu mipi hagadoyim v'halacha gamaisan." Whatever you find in Masechtas Edius, the test we say the halacha is like that, which happened to be the day in which Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah was chosen, as we see in Tfilas HaShachar, as the nasi. So that was the day in which Edius was learned, and therefore, in that situation, we're going to pass them. So even though you could maybe find other support like Rabbi Yehuda, but since we have the sheet of Rabbi Meir in Masechtas Edis, therefore we're going to pass like him. Therefore, when it comes to Meiser Sheni, we hold the din is it's considered to be Mammon Gavoa. It's not yours, and that's the reason why you can have Mekadosh Yeshu with it.